Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. Cody and I are excited to talk to you today about social media marketing tips and tricks. And I will let you know he's going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this episode because this is not my area of expertise. So I am personally just as excited to learn as much as many of you listeners are going to learn today. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Cody. Cody, welcome.
Hello, and don't let Maria sell herself short because over the last couple of months, I have seen some pretty good growth with her social media tricks and shenanigans that she's been doing. So she's been putting herself out there, and that's a big part of it. So
thank you, Cody.
Yes. Yeah. So this is definitely an episode that I'm personally very excited for because I just think that this is a section of the business that's very, very important. And it's also an area where a lot of coaches kind of struggle with too. So, if there's a problem, if like a lot of coaches struggle with something that's so important, that can really be one of the driving forces of the business. And that's something that I think definitely needs to be discussed. So, what are some things that some coaches could potentially struggle with though? I have a few in mind, but Maria, since you say that this is an area that you have kind of struggled with in the past, I'm curious to see what you think just from your own personal experience.
Sure. Yeah. So I think for myself, one of my superpower, my thing is to be in the moment with the client, right? And so I think for myself, when it comes to social media, there's a couple things. One is the content. Like what is it that I'm trying to say and who am I trying to say it to? Because if I'm not looking at that person and knowing their background, then I still have to figure out what it is that is going to draw them in. So there's that piece of it. And then I think the other piece of it too is the technology. Admittedly, I play around mostly in Facebook, not because I think it's the cool place to be, but because it's familiar. It's the thing that I kind of got into social media with, and I don't want to have to learn 400 different things. And so that's where I play the most because that's my comfort zone. Now, I do know that I want to branch out and do more on Instagram, and I know that Cody has actually walked me through a few things on that, and I'm hoping that you can do that here too. And I also have been playing around in Clubhouse as well. So I know that just as things grow and there's more and more choices to choose from, I think that that's one of the pieces of overwhelm for myself. I don't know about all of our listeners, but those are definitely some of the biggest issues for myself.
Yeah, I think that the feeling of overwhelm, because there are so many different options, that's even something that I think that just everyone deals with. I know for a fact that when Clubhouse first came, I thought it was actually pretty cool. So I was kind of excited about it. But when I was telling other people about it, they were like, I don't want to download another app. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's another one, and, not to talk bad about Clubhouse. I think Clubhouse is amazing. But it is overwhelming. There's so many different options. And now Mark Zuckerberg's talking about some metaverse where it's basically augmented reality and like it's crazy. So,
and I know the listeners, and I know the listeners don't know this necessarily, but I'm about to share it. I'm quite a bit older than you are, Cody, and I don't know. I'm sure that our listeners, their age ranges from probably right out of high school to, even in their 60s, 70s. And so I think I'm speaking for myself as someone in my 40s, social media is not something that I, quote, grew up with. Right. I mean, I was in college when they started doing, I think it was MySpace. I never even got into it, so I don't know. But I think that was about when MySpace came in, was when I was about in college. And so I think that somebody like myself who didn't grow up with it finds it a little bit more intimidating just to try to navigate through. I could tell you that young kids, like the ones that I have right now, honestly, I don't even let them have social media yet, but I know just watching them with a phone in their hands, they would be able to navigate it with zero question and probably very little intimidation. And so I do think that depending on who it is that's listening to this right now, their their level of expertise, their level of experience, their level of comfort will vary based on the exposure they had growing up, and how they can then transfer that exposure into how to make it work for their business.
I totally agree. For context, I'm 28. I just turned 28, so I'm a fresh 28-year-old.
A decade and a half, yes, less than me.
Yeah, there you go. And I did grow up with it, so it is a little bit more of like a natural thing for me. But admittedly so, I'm constantly trying to keep up. Things are always changing. And I don't know if that's me letting my age show or not. But it is a constant changing thing, and it feels like as soon as you learn something, it's like, oh wait, well this new thing came along, or wait, like there is this update, so it changes now, and it's just tough. However, I will say it is something that I think is very important, and you kind of have to try and stay up to date. As much as it is annoying, it is something that I think is necessary.
Yeah. And I think to that point, Cody, because it's the technology that tends to change a lot, I mean, you're going to be here to help us kind of navigate what's current in terms of technology. And I think you're going to give us a few tips and tricks for like Instagram and Facebook and maybe some others. But ultimately, the content is what's really important here. And that can change here and there, as we kind of see what are people looking for. But the reality is when we teach about content, we teach about how to talk from your story. And that story is not something that's going to change often. And so if nothing else, let's make sure that our audience picks up today how to be able to talk about their story in their content. And then the rest of it can kind of just, come with the changes.
Yeah, I agree. So where do people start with this whole thing, and like what do they do and what should they do and all this kind of stuff, right? I think that some of the main things that people struggle with is lack of confidence, not knowing what to post, feeling like things have to be perfect, and being afraid to kind of put yourself out there. All of those are totally normal, I feel, and I've even struggled with that myself as well. But as much as I've put myself out there, and I'm not afraid, like I don't care. I don't care if I look like an idiot. If it's going to turn some heads, cool. Obviously you have to stay on brand, personal brand, but it's good to mix things up a little bit.
Absolutely.
But generally
and
speaking,
I love your stuff.
Yeah, it's, I have fun with it. So, but generally speaking, I think that one thing that I've learned is that you just got to do what you're good at.
Yeah.
And, so if you're good at writing, then cool. Like stick with something that's text based, whether it be a Facebook post or, whether it be a LinkedIn post or, a blog or, something like that, right? Something that's just text based. If you're really good at that, stick with that. If you're really good at like getting in front of the camera and taking like cool photos, or like, you know how to like be creative with that and make people smile or laugh, and you're also good at writing, then cool. Like Instagram is probably a really good place for you because that's a very photo driven app. Same thing with Facebook too. It's a very photo driven app. So that might be a good area for you. If you're comfortable with speaking in front of a camera, and you're very charismatic, and you're very lively, and video might be something that you're good at, then double down on video. You could do Instagram Reels, you could do TikTok, you could do YouTube, all that kind of stuff, right? Whatever you're good at, just double down on it, because if you try and do too much, if you try and force something else too much that you're not good at, it's going to come across that way. And you're going to, I don't want to say you're going to waste time and energy, but it's not going to be as valuable as if you were to double down what you're good at. Now, I do think that you should push yourself a little bit, and you should get uncomfortable and, explore these other areas, but do that on your own time, and do that because you want to, not because you feel like you have to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I'm glad that you brought it up, because I was actually going to ask you, what if you feel like you're not good at any of it?
Great question. So if you feel like you're not good at any of it, then it's a possibility that you're not. Okay? I'm just going to say that right out of the rip. It's a possibility.
Well,
that
don't
you're
come
not.
here for any fuzzy warm feelings.
That's right. This is real. Okay? It's a possibility that you're not good at any of those things. However, the way that you do get good at it is just doing it and just trial and error and seeing like, okay, which one of these areas gives you energy versus which one of them really like drains you, you know? That's one sign. The other sign would be what kind of engagement or response are you getting from these things? You know, are your posts like really on fire, but your video are super awkward? Well, that would be a sign too, you know, and then you just kind of like figure out through trial and error, like, okay, what's kind of good and what kind of works? And then you kind of like put a pin in things, like take notes, like, okay, this one worked really well. And this is why I think it worked well. And then try it again, you know? And then if something didn't work well, then make a note and be like, this one was horrible. And this is why I think it was horrible. And then try to not do that, you know? And eventually you'll find something that you are good at. But, you know, you have to start somewhere. And if you're not good at something, that's okay. You'll get good at it.
And I want to just kind of bring our listeners' attention to this concept that I know I used to do it. I still do sometimes, but I'm very much aware of it. And I'm wondering if you and some of our listeners do the same, where we compare our blooper reel to the finished production of someone else's product. And 100%. It becomes very, very easy to go, I can't put this out there, right? Because I see what this person has over there. And I was just talking to a client yesterday about, you know what, your blooper reel is, you're comparing it to their finished product, but they had a blooper reel too, and they're just not putting it out there and you're not seeing it. And, you know, that might've been 5 years ago. And so they've built on this 5-year foundation of practice, and you can't just compare where you are now to where they are. And I'm just kind of curious, Cody, if you use words like horrible and on fire, and I'm wondering if we are brand new at something, like many of our listeners are, and we put a post out there and we get 7 likes. How do we determine if that's horrible or if that would be on fire? If in our minds we're thinking on fire is really like, you know, tens of thousands of views type of thing.
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. I would say a good place to start would be like, I think that everyone kind of knows like what their average interaction would be if they're on social media in general. Okay. You know, so if they have like a personal Facebook or something and they post something and, you know, the average amount of likes that they get is 10, you know, let's just say. But then they post something that's business related and they get like 6. I would say that's a good post because 1, it's business related. So people aren't going to, you know, connect with it as much, right? You know, so you have to expect for it to be less than what your average is. But, you know, if it's 1 or none, or maybe even 2, as compared to the normal 10, that might be one that might need some improvement, you know? And if it is one that gets 10 or 11, then that's a really good one because that's up to par with your normal things, you know? So I think that's a good place to start to kind of gauge, but then the more you do post those business related things, you'll get like a good sense of like what your average for your business is as well. And then you can use that as a indicator of like, okay, well, my business usually gets around 5 or 6 likes. So as long as I'm in that area, I feel good. If I get 8 or 9, I know that's a really good one. If I get 1 or 2 or none, then I know it's probably not the best one.
Yeah, so thank you for putting that into perspective because I think that is one of those things that trips people up really easily. We have these super high expectations, and then even if we don't meet them, even though it was actually really good in comparison to our regular posts, we don't see it that way because we're looking at flat numbers. So yeah, thank you.
And I want to say something about the blooper reel too. Yeah. So me personally, I do a lot of photo and text based social media stuff. I have done some video in the past as well. which I'm fine with that, but it just takes a lot of time for me. So I prefer photo and text. And I work with a photographer. He's like my best friend, and I work with him, and we get together and we take some photos, and some are goofy, some are more serious and whatnot, business like. But I'm not gonna lie, like when we're doing those photo shoots, half the time I'm like, what do you think I should do? And he's like, I don't know. Why don't you just do something? And I'm like, okay, what do I do with my hands? And then he takes a photo, and I'm like sitting there like,
yeah, but those are some of the most fun ones.
Exactly. And then, it's just, you just have to just feel it out and just do it. And, you would look at some of those photos and be like, man, like, how did you come up with all these like goofy poses that are always so, I don't want to like make it sound great or anything, but always so like inviting or funny or whatever. Mm-hmm. Most of them are just me saying, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to do something random. And I just do it, Yeah. So those blooper reels are definitely real. And sometimes they can even work in your favor. People love bloopers.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for adding that. Mm-hmm.
So a couple things that I want to kind of focus on for this episode in particular. With this topic, it's so broad and there's so many different things that we could talk about. So I think that what we should do is probably even break it up into a couple different episodes. Okay. Just so people get like a good context of things. Yeah. But I really want to focus on the two biggest social media platforms, which is Facebook and Instagram. Okay. I think that that's a good place to start. I think that that's where most people are. And I think that it just makes the most sense there. So in regards to Facebook as a whole, obviously both Facebook and Instagram are the same company. So you can post from one and it can go to both without having to post twice, which is great. And you should definitely have a Facebook page for your page or for your business. And if you feel like it's difficult to get it off the ground, that's because it is. Facebook and Instagram, it's really, really hard to grow a business page. It used to be a lot easier when things were more organic, but now with all the paid ads, organic stuff, it really struggles sometimes. So the best way to build a business page, in my opinion, for both Facebook and Instagram, is through the avenue of your personal page as well. So a couple things you could do just to help kind of get springboarded is you could definitely invite people to like the page on Facebook. That's one thing you could do. I wouldn't overdo it because it can get a little spammy. So only invite people that you think might actually be interested or might actually want to support you, kind of thing. But that can be a good way to kind of springboard it up a little bit. But what I've done to kind of grow my page over time is I've posted on my business page, and then I've also posted on my personal page as well.
I don't mean to interrupt. Sure. Do you post it and then post it, or do you post it on your business page and then share it to your personal page?
I do two separate posts.
Okay.
Yep. Because an actual post will get more of a push from Facebook than a shared post will.
Okay. Good to know.
Yep. But I always tag the business page in my personal page post.
Also good to know. Okay. Yeah. Do you do the exact same content? Is it like a copy paste?
So most of the time I will, if it's like a bigger post kind of thing. Okay. But if it's something small, I don't want to take too much real estate for business on my personal page. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, people just stop paying attention. Mm-hmm. So if it's a smaller thing, then I usually just do the business page, and that's why people are following it, to get that content. Whereas the personal page is more so to create awareness of it and then drive people to it. Okay. So I would definitely recommend doing that. And one thing that's been working really, really well for me with Facebook and Instagram is actually the story aspect of things. And what I mean by stories is like those things at the top of the screen where you can click them and it's like, you know, a quick photo or a 10-second video and then it swipes to the next person, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Those stories. So I've been utilizing those a lot. And I know that Maria has also been diving into this world too.
Diving is a really, really strong word. I've dipped my toe into that. Dipped toes. I do actually have a very specific question about that. And I'm going to ask it now and you can either table it for later so I don't distract you, or you can answer it, whichever is best for you. But I know that it's a possibility to do like 8 different things on your story. I have no idea how to do that. Like once I've created one piece, I don't know like how do you add to it from there. So if you want to table that, that's okay. But I'm sure I'm not the only person in the entire world who has that question.
Sure. So I will answer that very, very quickly because it does tie into with what I was going to go into.
Okay.
So I think that stories are very, very powerful because with posting, you can scroll and you can scroll and you can scroll. And there's so many posts, right? Yeah. And they come from people that you're friends with. They come from ads. They come from, people, businesses that you follow. They
More
come from
ads.
suggested stuff, like all these different types of things. There's so many. And there's an algorithm to that as well. The story aspect, though, is mostly just your friends and the people you follow. The ads do happen, but it's it's much less, less. And as far as the algorithm goes too, there is an algorithm to the story aspect of things too. So like the people that you interact with the most will be the stories that you see primarily, or at least at first. But in general, it's more of a less effect. It's more so like if someone puts up a story recently, then they're going to be bumped towards the front.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the algorithm works in your favor, in my opinion, with the story as compared to a post, even more so.
Okay.
And one of the things that I do that's very, very powerful is creating polls on stories to generate some leads.
And for those who are just listening, you said the word polls, like POLL, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Like asking them a question and then them having 2 answers to choose from, and then they can interact with it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So having that interaction is so huge because you can make a post with a photo and a text blurb, and they can interact with it. They can like it, they can comment on it, but that kind of takes work, and it doesn't really like give like their feedback. Right. It's just like, oh, I liked it.
Yeah.
To whereas with a poll, it's almost like a game. And people like that. They like that feeling of like, ooh, I want to participate in this. Yeah. I want to see what that percentage is behind those 2 buttons and see if I'm in the majority or not, and they want to give their actual feedback. So
yeah. And the thing I love about the polls is that you get to decide what those answers are.
Yes.
And so when I create polls, I make sure that I give 2 answers that no matter what they say, it will give me something to talk back with them about, to invite them into a conversation. So I really like the flexibility on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that interaction desire is huge because people love them. People love those polls. And you could say something, very direct, like, do you need help with your money? Yes, or I'm not sure, or yes, or
not yet.
Maybe, not yet, something like that, right? That's a very, very direct thing.
Yes, or soon.
Yeah, or you could say something as simple as like, which do you think you spend more money with, cash or card? And people, they'll eat that up all day, and then what you can do is you can take those poll answers, and let's say that, we'll talk about more of a direct one. So the direct one is like, do you need help with your money? Okay. I wouldn't suggest actually putting that up. Be a little bit more creative with that, but whatever. So if they say yes, then you can then look at who answered them and see, okay, all of these people said yes. Billy said yes, Bobby said yes, Julie said yes, and Tammy said yes. Okay. So now I'm going to reach out to Billy, Bobby, Julie, and Tammy. And I'm just going to send them a message and say, hey, thanks for participating in my poll. Really appreciate that. I love seeing what people say. I saw that you answered yes, that you needed some help with money. Would you mind opening up about that? Maybe I can help.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be like, I'm a financial coach. I can solve all your problems, blah, blah, blah. Right out of the rip. Just open the conversation and just talk to them. And then, they might open up to you a little bit and be like, yeah, like I'm just stressed because I got, this going on and I have all these payments and, my dog just died and, all these different types of things. Right. And then just comfort them. Just be like, oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. How you feeling? How you doing? Have like a conversation with them for a little bit. But the conversation is crucial, that you always ask them another question to kind of get them to still interact with you. But it has to be in a way that's not salesy. It has to be genuine, Yep. And then just look for that opening. Look for that opening and just be like, I know that you said that you're feeling really stressed because you have, all of these payments and you feel like everything that you make goes right back out. I am a financial coach, and I can, this is what I primarily help people with. I would love to hop on a quick call with you at some point, maybe even later today or tomorrow for 10 or 15 minutes. Would that be something that you'd like help with? Mm-hmm. And then they'll either say yes, or they'll probably ignore you. One of the two.
Like, oh, he brought it out.
Right. But most of the people say yes. Yeah. And that's your in. And you just created a lead that you didn't have to put a ton of time and energy in. And, all it takes is just some follow-up. That's all it is. Yeah. And I even landed a client today from doing that exact thing. It was a client that came from a story poll lead.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm going to add to that, if I may, because that's what I do. When I do polls like that, even let's just use that very pointed example, I would actually reach out to the no's as well. And
for sure.
Yeah. So when I reach out to them, it would sound something like, similar to the beginning of yours. Thank you for interacting with my poll. I see that you don't need help with your money. Could you tell me what was the number one thing that allowed you to get control of your finances? And it gives them the opportunity to tell me a couple of things. One, it makes them think about whether or not they answered honestly, right? And then two, it gives me feedback so that I know how I can help my other clients as well, if there's something that's new out there. So it's a really good way of just kind of figuring out what's out there, but in the marketplace. And then three, it actually keeps them engaged. So that if there's another poll later on that they don't feel like, well, she's going to sell me if I try to get on there. It's just, they stay engaged, and then I can actually eventually follow up with, who do you know in your life that doesn't do that thing that helped you so well, right? And then it opens the door for referral. So I would encourage anyone who uses stuff like that to not just follow up with the people who are giving the answer that you think would be your opportunity.
I totally agree. I did one recently that was, I think the question was, do you believe that you personally can become a millionaire? By definition. And I reached out to all the people who said no, saw why, that kind of thing. Yeah. But then I also reached out to the people who said yes. And I said, I'm so happy that you feel that way. I don't know your situation, but I tend to agree as well. I think that the general person can become a millionaire with the right plan and the right actions. And I said, would you mind, one, sharing why you feel that you can become one? And also, two, what would you say to the person who answered no in this poll?
Great.
And that gives a little bit of a nugget of advice, which I actually found that there was some really good advice, and I even took some of these people's answers or some of these people's advice, and I was like, I might actually take that for myself.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a learning experience. And I think that the more that we see that the audience who's interacting with us, they have a lot to serve as well, to serve us with, the more we actually gain from doing all of this. So it's not just, oh, I have to put this on my calendar so that I get this out there today, that there's a purpose behind those posts.
Yeah.
But you still haven't answered my question, Cody. So I love the polls as well, right? What I struggle with is, okay, I've created this poll and now I have something I want to say, because as y'all know, I don't ever shut up. So like, how do I then put the next piece on there? Do I just add to the story? Help me out. Help me out with my technical difficulties, Cody.
So do you mean you have like something else to say that's related or not related?
Either or. I just want to know how to add to the story. Like I'll see people. There's a common friend that we have, and I know you. I won't say him by name, but I know you know who he is. Your chiropractor friend, and he may be listening today. I don't know, but I have gone on there and see that he'll have like 8 or 9. Story. Like, I don't even know if that's the right word. If I say 8 or 9 stories, it's like one giant storyline, right? And this one's 12 seconds and this one. How do you do that? How do you get them to, how do you have 8 or 9 there? I can't even figure out how to do 2.
Yeah. So it depends on where you do it. But generally speaking, if you film, so if you're like talking on the story, it's a video story. And you record it within the story itself. You can just hold down the button and it will create a bunch of stories for you, because each one is 15 seconds. If you pre-record it, you can just record it on your phone, and say it's a minute. Then you just need to go back into that video, because maybe you want to edit it or do something with it, take some takes or whatever, and you just need to break it up. So you'll need to like break it down into like 15-second segments, and then post it up. So you can post one, and then on Facebook in particular, or Instagram, either one, there's a little icon at the top where it has your profile picture, and right below it, it has a little plus as well. And that's where you can click that little plus sign, and it will allow you to post another story.
So that's different than the plus sign where your initial story was. It's a different plus sign. Okay. I'm sure that that's where I screwed up, because I know where the initial plus sign is. And then I'm like, how do I add another, I need a plus sign, and I never find it. So I will look for it there next time. I knew the part about how it will just kind of automatically break it up for you if you do a video. I admittedly have never done a video inside of Instagram. I wouldn't even know where to start. I'm not even sure if you just go into stories and then click video, like record. I don't know.
That's exactly it. It's that simple. And you've done videos, like you've posted videos before where you've talked.
Yeah, never in Instagram. I'm telling you, I played around in Facebook because that's what I just know the technology. Oh, here's how I do this and here's how I do that. And that's why I do it. So I would like to play around a little bit more on Instagram, though. I think for me, one of the things that stops me, and maybe the stories thing is a good thing, is that I have to have a picture for Instagram every time. And so I'm like, unless I have, I mean, I know you've got that vault of pictures because you've got that friend of yours. And so it's something to pull from. And sometimes I'm like, what do I take a picture of? so that stops me. And maybe the stories, if it's just a video, I don't need a picture on top of that. And so maybe that will be one of the problem solvers for me. I don't know.
Well, I think that if anyone is comfortable with doing video, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to be produced. You can literally just hold up your phone and just talk about something. Those do really well in the stories too. And what's really cool about that, especially on Facebook in particular, which then you can then post to Instagram. For some reason, I don't know why, but Instagram does not offer this to post to Facebook. You have to do it on Facebook to post to Instagram.
Interesting.
But there's something that you can do where you can record a video, and then you can click on the little sidebar. There's like some options on the right. There's a thing that says CC with a box around it, which is closed captioning, and it's just captions. So everything that you say is like captioned up on the screen, and you can choose different types of text, different types of font. And those are very, very enticing. Very, very enticing, because some people watch them with their sound on and others don't.
Right.
So, and even if you watch them with your sound on, I don't know, like I love watching TV with subtitles because I just feel like I retain the information better. So people like seeing that. That's why you see ads. Every ad that you see that is a good ad that has, thousands and thousands of likes on the post itself with social media marketing, every single one that's a video has subtitles.
Okay. And that happens automatically, right? Like that you don't have to go in there and type it up. It just, as long as you are enunciating your words well, it should be pretty accurate.
Yes. Yep. And
okay.
you can edit it if you want to. Like if there's a word that's wrong, but it's actually pretty good. It picks up pretty well. So
yeah, that's really good. Very good advice.
Yeah. The stories are very powerful. That's what I want to say about that.
And I love that they go away after 24 hours. So I just want our listeners to know that. Many of them probably already do. But if you guys don't know that, that is a perfect opportunity to not worry about what you're going to look like, what you're going to sound like. If you are a bumbling idiot by the time it's done, your bumbling idiot self will be gone in 24 hours, right? So it really kind of takes away some of that pressure of, oh my gosh, this is going to be out there for the world to see for the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that another thing just to say is just stay consistent with it. You don't have to be overbearing, but if you stay consistent with it, you're not only going to feel more confident, but you're going to be out there more and people are going to be seeing you. Because if you think about it, people see so many things.
Yeah.
And you don't get on everyone's page. So don't ever think that you're like overdoing it, because the odds are that someone who sees one post probably won't see the other one. I mean, there will be some overlap, but overall stay consistent, because that's how you get out there. That's how people learn about what you're doing and how you can help them. And that kind of rolls into what I think is probably the last thing I want to talk about, is a content calendar. So I don't know if you're aware of what a content calendar is, but it's a pretty simple concept. It's a calendar for your content, So,
I've created some really, really good content calendars.
Oh, okay. All right. You mind sharing a little bit?
Well, I said I created them. I didn't say I actually utilized them and followed through on them.
Okay.
And I'm guessing I'm not the only one who has had that issue. That's why I don't know, for anyone who's listening, you didn't see it, but I absolutely squirmed when Cody used the word consistency, because that's one of my Achilles heels. I am not super consistent, and it's not even because I don't want to say too much, and it's just I get distracted or something else happens and I don't follow through on that. And then I'm like, oh, I don't think it's that important. I don't put that emphasis on it. And so it kind of falls to the wayside. So I have created content calendar. I can share some things with you if you'd like. I just basically set up prompts for myself. So things that whether it was, information, something that I wanted to share with somebody, if it was curating someone else's content, I would put that on certain days. I would, if I wanted to focus on a book that I was reading at the time, I might pull something from that book, or if I wanted to have an inspirational quote or something. So I would just make an entire calendar of those prompts, and then I would or not follow through with what that prompt was. So at least I didn't have to do all the thinking that day. I have heard of some really great ways to set up and schedule posts and stuff like that. I have not been really great about batching my time. I know the tricks, I just have not followed through.
Yeah. So I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head, and I do want to talk about the follow through as well. I'm gonna come back to that in a second here.
Coach me here.
Yeah. So with the content calendar, it's exactly with what you just said. I mean, it's just a calendar where it's like, okay, on Monday, I'm going to make this type of post. On Tuesday, I'm going to make this type of post. On Wednesday, I'm going to make this type of post, so on and so forth, right? And some people, they like to do they like to make this on like a weekly basis. So you maybe on like a Saturday evening or a Sunday at some point or something like that. They'll kind of just like sit down for, it doesn't take long, 10 minutes at most, and just map it out, and then some people like to go so far as like putting everything together, and actually scheduling those posts. Now, I personally don't do that because that is like, it does take more time. You do have to sit down, schedule them all out, type them all out, upload all the stuff. And to me, it's just easier just to do one by one, once a day. It takes less time, and I'm okay with it. But that is an option you could do. And it's a good thing to do because not only does it keep things mixed up and it keeps things fresh, rather than just getting into a cycle of like, okay, I'm just making another one of these posts, another one of these posts, another one of these posts. It keeps people engaged, and you can kind of predetermine that engagement and that curiosity based off of what you would find interesting.
Yeah.
But another thing, as far as the consistency goes, this is what I have done, and it's helped me, because I've been there. And one thing that I do is I set reminders on my phone or alarms, one of the two. And every day it just says post at a certain time. And maybe I'll like be available to like, it'll go off and I'll be like, oh, yep, gotta do that. And I just do it right away. And then other times I'll hit the snooze because I'm in the middle of it. And I'll just, I'll get to it in 20 minutes. But it's still on my phone. It's still there.
Idea.
It's still in front of my face. And it's not going to go away unless I physically turn it off or say I've done that. And when you do that, if you want it to go away, there's two options. One is you can do the post and stay consistent and then feel good about it. The other one is you can lie to yourself and not do the post and say, hey, I did it, but that's not actually serving you, right? And I can tell you, I've definitely done both. I'm not perfect. I've definitely done both. But speaking from experience, when I've lied to myself about that, it doesn't feel good. Does not feel good.
Yep.
So I've learned that, the short-term, sometimes annoyance of taking the couple minutes to put up the post is much more worth it than feeling like I sold myself short.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. And what a great way to tee this up. With regard to the follow-up, because we did talk about following up with each individual who interacts with your story and et cetera, do you batch follow up or do you just kind of do it on the fly? So for example, if do you wait until, 2 hours afterwards and then just follow up with this number of people who have talked to you or interacted with you up till that point? Or, because here's why I'm asking. I know that a lot of people feel like once I've done this, now I'm going to be glued to my phone in order to try to follow up with all these people. And that's one of the things that stops people in their tracks a lot of times, because they're actually trying to either avoid social media altogether, with the exception of business, or they don't want to add one more distraction to their day. What do you say to that? What do you typically do?
I think that there's no wrong answer. And I think that both of them have pros and cons.
And you've done both.
I personally wait until the full 24 hours is done. And then I go into the archive and I see the full list of people who have had the chance to interact with it.
Okay.
And then
I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know you could do that. I was always like looking like, okay, we're at hour 23. I better go and take screenshots of these things. When I tell you, Cody, that I don't know the technology, and I'm guessing that I'm not the only one out there who doesn't know this stuff. So I don't even have to do that. You're saying there's an archive, even though it goes away after 24 hours, there's an archive of who interacted and such?
Yeah. So I'm going to pull up my page and I'll kind of walk
You don't have to do all the details
how to do that.
Here. It's just good for people
it's
to
real
know.
simple. It's real simple. So on Facebook, if you're on your mobile, all you got to do is you go to your profile. You'll see an area where it says add story, edit profile, and there's a thing that has 3 dots. Click the 3 dots. There's a button that says archive. You click that. And then there's a button up the top that says story archive. You click that and all of your stories pop up.
Okay. always for like forever? Like, or do they go away after 30 days or
forever?
They archive forever.
Yep.
All right. Well, I guess if you are the bumbling idiot that I talked about before, it is still kind of there, just not being out there.
Yeah, it's pretty simple it's pretty similar on Instagram as well. It's a little bit different, but
and is your actual story archived or just the results from that? Both. Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. So you guys, if you're listening in today, you know, you do not have to have all the answers to be a successful coach. You don't even have to have all the answers to start posting on social media, because I've started and I don't obviously know much of anything. But we want to make sure that you know the right questions to ask. So if you have questions that have come up for you today, I really do encourage you to email those to us. In this case, email it to Cody because he's gonna one who's gonna actually respond to you on that one, not me. But we want to make sure that those questions get asked. And another great place to do that is going to be in our Facebook group. So that way you're not having to email them in if you don't want to. You can just ask them right there. And that Facebook group, I always mess up the name of that Facebook group.
It's New Money Habits Financial Coaching.
Oh, financial. See, that's I always throw out financial. So New Money Habits Financial Coaches is the Facebook group where you can find us there, and you can ask these questions, and then not only will Cody answer them for you, but some of the other individuals in that group who do know some of these tricks would be happy to support you as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think this is a good place to wrap up. Personally.
All right. Sounds great.
I could go for hours.
I know, and I hope you do at some point.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, what are some of the topics that you are going to go on later on? We'll do a couple more episodes for this for them. What are some other topics they can look forward to in the coming weeks?
I think that a couple other topics might be like how to write an effective post.
Okay.
Something that is going to get a lot of engagement and get people to want to message you and reach out to you because they want your services. Another one might be like, creating like an effective lead magnet that, you can push through your social media pages to then, get that contact, name, email, phone, and then, put them into an email blast. Or a funnel, that kind of thing. So I think that those for sure. And then I'm sure as time goes on, we'll definitely talk more about other social media platforms, like maybe TikTok or, Clubhouse, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. So if you guys have specific questions that you would like answered, please feel free to send them to us, especially in this area of social media marketing, and we might be able to do episodes on those as well. So anything else, Cody, before we say goodbye to our listeners today?
Just do it. Put yourself out there. Don't be afraid. If you look silly, that's fine. People love silliness, and actually, I've found that it actually helps you because it makes you more human, and people don't want that, suit and tie, Mr. Serious all the time, They want a real person. So just go have fun with it. Don't think about it too much. Just do it. Yeah. Nike.
Yeah. And do it with a friend, right? I mean, look silly with someone else too. Because I think that's what's most fun. When I see your stuff and you see mine and we could just kind of go back and forth. Oh, that was a really good one. Hey, can I steal that one? And so that way you're not feeling like you're on an island like sometimes we do as coaches.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. We really hope that you have enjoyed today's content and that you have been taking notes fervently. You couldn't put the pen down, and that you are looking forward to all of the other social media content stuff that Cody will be bringing up in future episodes. Thanks for listening, you guys. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our host by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching. Music provided by Summer School.